Hello, everyone. My name is Aviana Calderon, and I am here to present my dissemination project to you all today. My dissemination project is on the topic of co-teaching. And I chose this topic because as I have entered my last semester here at Columbus State University, I did have the pleasure of taking an advanced collaboration course that heavily focused on co-teaching. And it just so happens that this semester I have had, well, this school year I have had the pleasure of having one co-taught class and being able to work with a co-teacher that I really our teaching styles are very similar. It has been a very positive experience. So for our table of contents, we will start with co-teaching. What is it? And then move into different types of co-teaching models that you may see in the classroom. The first one being one teach, one support, and then team teaching, station teaching, and parallel teaching. First, co-teaching, what is it? Co-teaching is an instructional model where two or more educators work collaboratively to plan, instruct, and assess a group of students within the same classroom or learning environment. It also might look different depending on the needs of your students. You can have a co-teaching environment with a special education teacher, and you can also have a co-teaching environment with an ESL teacher if you have a heavy population of students who are new to the country or just still receive those ESL services because English is their second language. General education teacher and a special education teacher in a co-teaching environment are there to support students with and without disabilities. And then bilingual or ESL teachers with general education teachers are in the classroom together to address the needs of multilingual learners. The first co-teaching model, and I would have to say that this model is also the most common that you'll see in a classroom, is one teach, one support. One teach, it's also known as one teach, one assist, and that is where one teacher teaches a full group lesson while the other teacher roams and helps individual students. Or it can be called one teach, one support because the second teacher often provides additional support for learning or behavior management. And this co-teaching model does have its benefits, but it also has its challenges. So for our benefits, it allows one teacher to teach a lesson without interruption from students who need assistance. Being that I teach math, I teach 8th grade math, some of the content is very hard. So there can typically be a lot of questions, especially with students who receive accommodations through an IEP that they might need additional clarification along the way. And so that co-teacher is able to walk around the classroom and answer those individual questions without me having to stop my lesson. And with that, it gives real-time help for students who need it. However, there can be its challenges. And the most common challenge that we see amongst this one teach, one support model is that it can appear as though one teacher is more in charge than the other. So students who are placed in this environment that are not typically used to being in this environment can feel as if the teacher who gives the most instruction is the one in charge, whereas the one that's roaming the classroom is the assistant. However, both the teachers are essentially in charge. It's just that they are playing different roles at the time. Next, we have team teaching. And this is where both teachers are in the room at the same time, but take turns teaching the whole class. And so our benefits to team teaching is that it provides both teachers with an active instructional role. So therefore, whereas the one teach, one support model had the lead teacher and the assistant teacher, team teaching is both teachers have an active role. And it allows for lessons to be presented by two different people with two different learning styles, which can be a benefit to students who don't all learn the same way. However, it does have its challenges because it does take time and trust for teachers to build a working relationship that values each teacher equally in the classroom. So this model is essentially only beneficial if you have a co-teacher and a general education teacher that are willing to take the time outside of the classroom to get to know each other and effectively plan and work on each other's strengths and weaknesses to see which parts of the lesson would be beneficial for each teacher to teach. Next, we have station teaching. And station teaching is where the class is divided into 3 or more groups, and the classroom has multiple learning centers. And the teachers teach the same material in different ways to each groups as they rotate through the stations. So you would have different stations set up in the classroom, and each station would have a different activity. The benefits of this is that, again, it provides both teachers with an active instructional role. So there's not the sense of one lead teacher and then your assistant teacher. Both teachers are actively engaged in the lesson, and they might pick a group that they want to teach at the time. So within my classroom, when I station teach, I have my own station, and my co-teacher has their own station, and we use those stations as a little bit of remediation where students struggle with those topics independently. And then the independent stations are the ones that students have shown strengths and then that they can complete by themselves with minimal assistance or support. And it allows teachers to use flexible grouping to tailor teaching to each student's group's needs. So flexible grouping can be, you have your students mixed by high, middle, and low groups, or you can have a mixture of high, middle, and low in the same group. Then that way it helps students learn from each other. And then our challenges presents itself as students may not get to all the stations if they are not moving at the same pace. And this is something that I see in my classroom as well. Group stations that essentially are supposed to take 7 to 10 minutes, sometimes take double that, depending on what the topic of discussion is. So students may only get to maybe 2 to 3 stations when in reality, they're supposed to get to 5 to 6. And it also can be noisy and distracting for some students. So essentially, station teaching is group work. So as you're moving to these stations, you're working with groups. And when working with groups, there comes talking. And sometimes that talking can lead to other conversations, or students are just not using a proper inside voice. So it can distract students in their group and in other groups. And lastly, we have parallel teaching, and the team splits the class into 2 groups, and each teacher teaches the same information at the same time. So for this model, I like to use when the entire class is showing struggles in a particular topic, and maybe splitting the group into 2 smaller groups, and we can do a more hands-on activity with minimal distractions will help hone in on some of the students' deficits. And so the benefits of this particular model is that it allows for small group instruction, which can be especially helpful for students who learn and think differently. And again, it provides both teachers with an active instructional role, which has been the emphasis of this entire presentation, is that when you are in a co-teaching environment, it is important to emphasize that both adults in the classroom are teachers, and both adults should be respected as such. And they should play the same active role in giving and delivering instruction. And our challenges are, it requires both teachers to have strong knowledge of the content, so students will learn the same thing. On the downside of co-teaching is that some co-teachers are placed in a classroom that they don't show strengths in. So for instance, one of their classes would be a math co-teaching situation, and then the other will be an ELA co-teaching situation. And naturally, as teachers, we gravitate towards one subject more than the others because that is where we show our strengths. So if you have a co-teacher that shows strengths in ELA but has been placed in a math co-teaching situation for a class period or more than one class period, that just might require some additional planning so that that teacher can work through the problems and work through their instructional materials prior to delivering them to the students. And that is it. I hope you enjoyed listening to my presentation for co-teaching models. Thank you.